Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining this webinar. It's a free webinar because the information is so important that we have to give it out to everyone. We've been getting a lot of questions with regards to the PAL, which is the Provincial Attestation Letter. What is it? How does it affect us? How are we going to get it? Can it be issued twice? What happens if I get refused? Can I get another one? We've gotten a lot of questions. Okay, thanks so much, everyone. I can see you can hear me, so fantastic. For some of you, because we only posted this information on our social media, so I believe you already follow us for you to have registered from there. My name is Pearl Ohiani, but my maiden name is Bolkomalafe. For those who may want to check on the CICC website to be sure that I'm licensed to be able to give any kind of immigration advice. I'm the Director of Admissions with Huddersfield Educational Services and the RCIC with Immigration Services, Huddersfield. Huddersfield is just one company, but two different arms. Okay. And I'm happy to share this information. It's a top topic that's been on everyone's mind since the announcement. So I'll just take us back very briefly to the announcement. So the original announcement was made January 22nd. And it took everyone by surprise, like even the schools, everybody was surprised. Nobody was expecting this. And initially, when the announcement was made, because of how rushed it was, IRCC themselves didn't have some information straight. Like there was initially some things that within a few days of the announcement, they went back to change. For those who follow me, you may have seen some that I screenshot and posted to say, okay, this is what it was before, this is what it is now. But basically, on February 5th, they came out again to just give more further clarification for what the announcement was and what people can expect. So February 5th, this is what IRCC said. So, to provide further clarification for the announcement that was made in January, they are acknowledging the fact that international students make important contributions to Canada and their campus and community and economy. But here are the announcements that were made and, further clarification being given. Number one is the international student cap, which obviously not too many people were happy about. We weren't excited about it either. But, there's a lot of politics around international students and what they're doing in Canada and all of that. So obviously, whenever there's an election around the corner, unfortunately, these are part of the groups of people that may get affected by either positive or negative reforms. So basically, this cap, as of people who hadn't submitted as of January 22nd, it affected them. And in order to better handle that cap, the government brought this document called Provincial Attestation Letter into place. At the time, they hadn't done anything about it, but they quickly made the announcement so that it would prevent people from quickly submitting and overwhelming them while they're still trying to figure it out. They actually gave the government, the different provinces, till March 31st, but thankfully, a few provinces took initiative to get this sorted from the beginning of March, to be able to avoid the huge flow of applications that may begin to go in from the end of March. So, let's get into this. What is the attestation letter? According to IRCC, the attestation letter is a verification letter that will be sent from the province to the institution, then from the institution to the international applicant. In some cases, it may go to the agent. In some cases, it may go straight to the student. I think in most cases, actually going straight to the student or to both the agents and the international students. The letter will serve as proof that the applicant has been accounted for within the cap limit set by the federal government. Applicants will submit the attestation letter along with their study permit applications, and institutions will use their full allocation and will not be able to submit more applications until a new allocation is issued by the federal government for the following year. So, we already know what the cap for this year was, and based on that, the provinces have allocated to the federal government has allocated to the different provinces specific numbers. At the moment, we don't have all the provinces numbers, but at least for British Columbia, we know that let me see, what was the number? So British Columbia, I believe let me see what that, let me hold on one second. I had it written down somewhere. What the exact number? Okay, I'll come back to that while we take when we start taking questions and answers. But okay, yeah, I found it. So BC confirmed that the province was allocated 83,000 83,000. That was the cap for the international students they can take. We'll still get into who needs and who doesn't need, just in case there's anyone who had that question. And it's expected that that is 83,000 students that they can give PALs to, but obviously they hope to have at least like a 60% conversion rate. Obviously, the IRCC understands that not everyone that will get a PAL or a letter of acceptance will be approved study permit. So they try to give more allocations in order to allow for like a conversion that is a bit reasonable. For those who follow me, we actually did a post on New Brunswick. They weren't too excited because they felt that they should have been given, I think, a cap of about 15,000 or so to be able to get the number that they expected them to convert, because not all provinces convert students the same way. Some provinces have like a higher conversion rate, and some, struggle to get those international students. And I guess that's part of the issues that provinces are still having with the federal government with regards to the PAL. So who needs a provincial attestation letter? Most post-secondary students study permit applications, they need it. Most non-degree granting graduate programs, for example, people who are coming to do certificate programs or graduate diplomas, they need it. And anyone else not included in the list I'll mention below will need it, okay? And when they say post-secondary, they mean anything above grade 12, like post-secondary, as long as you're going to like a college, your education is higher than a secondary school, you will need it, except from obviously the people we'll mention shortly. So who does not need a provincial attestation letter? And what I can do, let me see if you guys can see this, just so you can follow along. So I'm going to put in the chat box, in the Q&A box, the link where I'm just sharing this information from, just so that you guys can follow along. And for those who joined after I started, there's a Q&A box where everyone can type their questions, and I'll just get questions from there when we're done. Okay. And I believe that even as I'm answering even as I'm going through this very brief presentation, that I'm answering some of the questions that I'm already seeing in the chat box. So I've sent a link now where people can click to just get more details, but I will continue and I'll come back to the Q&A. Now, who does not need a provincial attestation letter? People who are coming to Canada to study on a primary school level or secondary school level, they don't need. Students who are coming to study a master's or a doctoral degree, they don't need. That's a PhD. They don't need. In Canada, visiting or exchange students studying at a DLI also don't need. In Canada, study permit and work permit holders, including those who are applying for extensions, they don't need. And in Canada, family members of study permit work permit holders, they also don't need. So those three sections have to do with in Canada. So people who are making those applications inside of Canada, they don't need. Students whose applications that were received before 8:30 a.m. January 22nd, they also don't. Obviously, that means because the applications have already gone in. Like, you can't start pulling out an application just to get a PAL. So I hope that gives some clarity. Now, there's something I want to touch on while we're still on this topic. So I know a lot of people will be like, oh, okay, I want to go for a master's now. Since master's people don't need PALs. Well, I need to explain to you that to be able to get admission for a master's program, even a PhD, is not easy at all. And it's important to know that the minimum requirement to get into a master's program is a 2-1. A 2-1. Sometimes some schools will even say like the GPA, which is still within that 2-1 range, or sometimes it's the higher end of a 2-1, range. But basically, the minimum requirement to get into a master's program is a 2-1. And it's important to know that even if you have a 2-1, the chances of being able to get admission is pretty slim, because It's very competitive. They always have very limited spots available for international students. And if the minimum requirement is a 2-1, then you can almost imagine how many other 2-1s or first class holders are out there also trying to get in for the same program. So the fact you have a 2-1 does not guarantee that you're going to have admission for the program. So I just want people to have their minds open to that. Some schools, I'm sure with this new PAL system, some of the schools who in the past may have accepted a 2-2 if you do a GRE or GMAT, I feel like some of them may come back to take that out, and some may still leave it there. There's some schools that assess you on a case by case and look at your work experience and like whatever your profile or value you may bring to, the mix of the class. They may accept, but very few. And I just want us to be realistic with those expectations. So that was what I wanted to add with regards to people who may say, oh, now I want a master's or a PhD. Is also very, very bulky and not very straightforward. And they typically prefer people who have studied in, maybe done a master's in Canada to get into their PhD programs. Very, very few international students get into it from outside the country. Okay, so that is it about the PAL introduction. Now, I wanted to just talk about some of the updates that we got from the different institutions or provinces. Just make sure you're taking notes. And for those who may want to watch it again, you head on to our YouTube channel to be able to watch it. By the end of this webinar, you're going to get a link that has our social media handle and our YouTube channel. So you could click it to be able to to follow us and subscribe to those platforms. Okay, so let me see some other updates that we got with regards to the PAL. Now with this whole, obviously part of why IRCC introduced this PAL system is for those who are very conversant with the news and what's going on in Canada. Last year, there was a lot of chaos with regards to international students. There was a lot of bad news, bad rep. And to be honest, unfortunately, this week there was another very, very bad news about international students. I don't want to talk about it here, but I just want to say that, unfortunately, international students are not getting the best reps and news, but it's everyone's duty. All of you on the call who are international students or prospective international students, it's your duty to make sure that by the time you come to Canada, make sure you're among the people contributing and shedding a brighter light to international students, part of the people working together with your schools to, let them have good things to say. Oh, international students are adding value, not that they're taking, or, like some people may feel like, oh, they're taking our jobs, they're weighing down our healthcare system. There's all sorts of things. But obviously, because of all those things from last year, or even, students have it falsifying a lot of financial documents and all that, like IRCC was like, you know what, let's be, I'm not saying they said this per se, but I feel like they want to be more like the UK. The UK has a very strong monitoring system for international students, because we also work with the UK. We also work with UK schools. They have a very strong monitoring system in place, in so much that if a student misses class a certain number of times, the school can actually report to the UKVI, and that student can be on their way back to their home country within like a short time. Canada didn't really have that in place, and I feel like that's what they're trying to have now, because they want to be able to know who are the students coming in, what are they doing, are they progressing, are they studying like they said they will. There's all sorts of stories about maybe students coming, claiming asylum and all those, like there's all sorts of things. Thankfully, none of our students have had any of those issues, but IRCC wants to be able to monitor more closely. They want to put the onus back on the provinces, because provinces are actually responsible for the education in their countries. So they want to put it back on them. Look, take more responsibility, see what exactly is going on in your provinces, and be sure that you are aware that the students coming in, are they studying, or are they coming in and going to do other things? Are they coming to your school in, like they said, or they're coming in and going to another province. There's so many things that IRCC, I believe, wants schools and provinces to do, work closely together to ensure that the integrity of the international student program is being, put back in place. So there will be, what you can expect moving forward with regards to this whole PAL system is there's going to be a tighter screening. Schools are going to screen students more closely. They're going to want to be sure that you are serious. You are a serious student who wants to come and study and nothing other than study. They're going to want to be sure that you have the funds. Like, if you say you have the funds, you need to have access to the funds. And I want to use this opportunity to tell people, look, if you are part of the people who have some arrangement with somebody and somebody is going to, and you don't actually have access to that money, IRCC knows all those things. And it is in your best interest to make sure that whatever money you say you have access to it. IRCC reaches out to the different banks to confirm, is this money available? Does this person have access to the money? Is this account detail correct? They go all out to verify, especially proof of funds. Unfortunately, some countries, they are very, very popular for, fraudulent proof of funds, and IRCC already knows. So if there's anybody saying, oh, come, I'll help you, I'll package this for you, run away, because you don't want anything to mess up your opportunities. If it is found out that you've misrepresented, that's a 5-year ban. For 5 years, you can't apply again, especially when they have proof against that. So I just want to throw that in there. But expect that going forward, IRCC is going to be screening very closely. They're going to be monitoring the students coming. What are they doing? Are they graduating? Are they just, whiling away time and just coasting, or coming here and then going to another province, And schools too are going to want to be very careful to be sure that the students that they gave their very limited allocation to are serious and want to really study. Schools are also going to want to do that. Do not be surprised if some schools begin to ask you for your proof of funds even before they give you a letter of acceptance. Do not be surprised if that happens, okay? And schools are going to focus more on the quality of applications that they're receiving. So students, the quality of their profile, what have they been doing in the last few years? Have they been working? Have they been schooling? What are their academics like? For example, there was a student that got admission, and this student still had their offer letter, but the school sent a message to them to say, look, our requirements have changed from January, right? And you don't meet the requirement for this program again, so we have to take you down a notch. Unfortunately, I don't blame them. Every school, every year, most schools, let me not say every, most schools, they always review their requirements. And a typical example is about 5-6 years ago or more, right? Some schools will take a 2-2 for a master's program, but right now there's almost none that will. So every time schools try to review different policies, different requirements to be sure that it's up to par with maybe the other schools that they want to be on the same level with. Another thing is, no school is going to give you a PAL. Okay, let me not say no school, but at least majority of the schools right now, they're insisting that only people who have made tuition deposits would receive a provincial attestation letter. I can tell you for a fact that quite a number of schools have already begun to apply for the PALs for their students. Okay. Now, with this PAL process in place for most of the provinces, at least I know Ontario, I see a question there about when Ontario zone is. Ontario zone is supposed to be in place as I speak right now. We're hoping for more information, but they've told us that it's in place as we speak right now. But they'll give us more information as to when students will begin to receive it. Now, the way it's going to work is the province, I said this earlier, the province will send it to the school will send it to the students/agents. All students are required to submit a PAL with their study permit application. PALs will be issued by the provincial authorities to the schools, and PALs will only be requested for and issued to students who have fully paid tuition deposits as indicated on the letter of acceptance. So obviously I'm adding this because it depends. Some schools have a specific amount. Some schools will say pay 10,000. Some may say pay 5,000. Some will say pay the full tuition fee. it will be indicated on your letter of acceptance what is accepted. And there's no exception. They're not going to accept, oh, part payment now, part payment later. They're very serious about this, because for them, you making payment means that you are committed to resuming. You're committed to resuming at the school. And another thing I need to tell you, in case anyone has asked this already, IRCC and provinces are working very, very closely on a solution to prevent students from using the PAL and LOA from one school and switching to another school once their study permit have been approved. They are working on something to prevent that from happening, because they don't want a situation whereby someone uses the PAL of one province just to get into the country and now go and switch to another country. They don't want that. Okay. Let me see. I'll soon come into the questions. I see some more questions are coming in. I'll soon come into the questions. So at the moment, for those asking for Ontario, and please make sure you follow us, because we try to put out the information while it's still hot and as consistently as possible. So make sure you're following us to continue to see the updates as we get it. So as at Thursday, Ontario hasn't given schools an idea of what the cap is to each institution. But what I want to say is that there's definitely going to be a huge reduction, almost like a 50% reduction in what they typically have as a whole province. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so I see. Okay, so let me just see that if I've covered most of the things I wanted to say before coming into the question and answer. And I just want to see that I've covered most of the things I wanted to touch on before. Okay. Okay, so before I go into the other things I wanted to talk on, let me just see how many questions I can answer. Okay, so I've answered the question about Ontario. Yes, they already have things in place to begin to issue it. But at the moment, they're not sure what the cap is, but they want us to encourage students to make payment of their tuition deposits, so that once they're ready to start issuing it, they would, only issue to people who have made the necessary deposits. So I see some questions about schools in Alberta. Let me see what that update was for Alberta schools. And while I'm trying to find out that update, let me share another link that is going to be very useful for those who are asking about Alberta. Let me share the link that is very, very important to keep track of. And this link is for those who are going to Alberta, okay? This link I'm sharing is for those going to Alberta, okay? That's where any update with regards to Alberta is going to be disseminated. But yes, schools in Alberta, the good news is for schools in Alberta, they're very, very confident that based on the allocations they've received, we don't know the exact figure right now, but they feel that they are going to be able to meet at least like 100% of it, because Alberta has the space, Alberta has the facilities, the schools have space, so they don't have issues with being able to achieve the 100% allocation that they may receive. So most of these schools I'm seeing here, the Alberta schools, you don't need to worry. But one thing that the schools want you to know is, once you get your letter of acceptance, make your deposit. They're only giving attestation letters to people who make deposits of school fees. And make sure that while we're playing this little waiting game, that you are getting your documents together ready, so that as soon as you receive your PAL, you're ready to submit your application. So I know I have some of my clients also on this call, because I wanted to, this was actually supposed to be just for our clients, but because we had a lot of people asking questions on our social media, we opened it up to more people to be able to, ask questions. So for those of our clients, we started reviewing the documents that you uploaded, and I'm going to be reaching out to a few of you that I see some documents are still missing. But in the meantime, I want to advise you, make sure that your financial documents are in place and are strong, okay? And that as soon as we receive the PALs, we should be at least more than 70% ready to submit. Schools want to avoid students applying too late in March, because there's going to be a huge influx, at least by March 31st, still being the deadline to, have the PAL system in place for each province. By then, it's expected that all provinces have gotten their system in place, and that means there's going to be way more people applying. Okay, so let me see which other question. So Alberta, they have their PAL system in place, and once you meet the requirements, they would apply for the students, and they would issue it to both you and your agent, or just you. Okay, for those asking for Alberta, it's in place already. BC is already in place. In fact, BC, they confirmed that they can actually get your PAL out in 3 days. They put in the application and to take 1 to 3 days. They said that categorically. Okay. Somebody is asking, if your visa is denied and you decide to defer your admission and reapply for visa next year, can one still use PAL for this year to apply for next year? So that's a very fantastic question, and I'm glad you asked that. I also asked the question similar to that when I was in one of the webinars with the schools. And they said that one of the schools said you can reuse a PAL for that period for which it has been offered. But the other school said, if it's outside of that period, you can't use that same PAL. So for example, if you're supposed to go this September, you get refused, but you now reapply for maybe say January, there's a chance that it can be reused. But if you reapply for next year, September, it can't be reused because it's not going to be valid again. I hope that answers that question. So if it's still within the time frame of what your offer letter or the PAL letter covers, it can be reused. And this is what BC said. But Ontario, they said no. Then if you get refused, you can't reuse it. But I said, look, BC says they can. And then they said, okay, you know what? They'll confirm and get back. So when I get a definite answer, I will get back to everyone. But for now, Ontario felt that it's not something that can be reused. BC said it can, because once they've issued it, it's been issued. And obviously it may have like a expiry date on it, so that will let you know if like you can keep reusing it as long as you have it. It means, so let me break it down. Once you have a provincial attestation letter, it means you've been factored in by the school, and the school has let the province know that you are coming, right? Obviously that means that you are part of the numbers that have been allocated for that province, so you can keep reapplying. And this is with regards to BC. Ontario will get back to me if it's the same thing. It should be, but yeah, you can keep reapplying as long as it's still within that window. Okay. So I hope this shed some light on that. Let me see the other questions that we have. I'm having very, very, very fantastic questions. Okay, attestation letter, if it's available in Alberta. Want to know if this college is now sending. So I'm not sure about this particular college, but I know that Alberta has it in place already. And once you meet the requirements, they will send it to you. So it's important that you reach out to the school to confirm, to let them know that you need it. So for those who schools have not yet contacted, you contact them or your agent to let them know, look, I need the PAL to put in an application. So the school will now reach out and apply for you. They would apply to the province, and the province will issue it, and then the school will send it to you or your agent. Okay, but Alberta already has it in place. BC has theirs in place. Ontario said as at March 5, it's already in place. Okay. Okay, so I already answered the question of who's eligible for the PAL. For Manitoba, okay, I'll get back. I would answer Manitoba shortly. I have that information. Manitoba has theirs in place. Saskatchewan, let me just see, because I still sent another email. Let me see if they responded. And if they didn't, I will do a post on that. I'll do a post on that. I just want to see if they responded. Okay. So at the moment, I don't see any response from Saskatchewan, but as long as you're following me, you would see it once I post it. Okay. So at the moment, Saskatchewan has not given us a specific update with regards to what their process is going to be like for the, and it's a bit surprising because they're usually very, they're usually very hands-on with those things, okay, so Manitoba, I will talk on Manitoba shortly. I have the information for Manitoba, thankfully. For Nova Scotia, I actually had seen that news somewhere that they have their allocation already, but for some reason, I don't know why it wasn't coming up again. Okay, just hold on. Let me see if I saved it somewhere. I got the information about Nova Scotia just this morning, and for some reason, let me just see. Okay, so let me get back on Nova Scotia. Let me just continue to answer the other questions. Okay, so somebody is asking, is there anything on our part we can do to, on our part, we need to do before the letter gets to us? There was a time, okay. So yes, I said, for those who have not gotten, okay, so number one, if you haven't gotten any information at all about your PAL from your school and you're supposed to resume, say May, September, you need to either reach out to your agent or to the school and inform them that you have not gotten any information and you need to apply. So let me tell you something else. Schools are putting priority on people resuming for May. Most schools are focusing on people resuming for May because May is so close and they want them to quickly apply. So if you still have your offer for May to resume for May, it is expected that your visa documentation are already intact and it's just the power waiting for. After May, then the next set of people will be September, but they're focusing on people resuming for May. Most schools, that's the focus right now. Obviously, because if it's May, obviously you should have submitted by like February or like latest this month, right? But on your part, what you can do is get your finances together because that is one of the biggest issues, one of the biggest reasons for refusal. Well, I can't talk too much about, because I see some questions asking me about proof of funds and all that. I can't really talk too much about that because this is focused mostly on the PALs. But I will tell you that from January, for those who follow us, you see we put the update. The proof of funds requirement for an international student went up to 20,635. 20,635. And then if you're coming with children, the amount changes. And, depending on where you're going, like the balance of your tuition fee, cost of transportation, and all of that, just make sure that your funds are available to you. That's the most important thing. And, like don't do those things that some people do with banks and whatnot. Like IRCC knows about those things. Do not do any of that. That's my big advice to you. We have a document obtained from IRCC that shows everything that people think they don't know, they know. And that is why there's a huge number of refusals, because people are feeling like they don't know. They know, and they're waiting. So please, I feel really bad for the schools because the schools don't know what's in the students' heads, but they are hoping that the students will come. You do your part to make sure that you are able to come, basically. So yeah, get your documents together, pay your tuition fee, and reach out to the school if the school hasn't reached out to you yet. And then they would help to apply for your PAL. But remember, their focus right now are people going in May and then the next batch would be September. But for those who are going, like for those who have already received their acceptance letter, what's going to happen is you will just get your PAL. Like once you've paid your deposit, you will get your PAL. But going forward, after like this whole time that they've sorted this whole thing out, when students get an offer and they make their deposit, as they're receiving their test, as they're receiving their letter of acceptance, they would also be receiving their provincial attestation letter. Okay, so that's something else that people should take note of. So I see. Okay, so yeah, so this person is basically saying that he paid $10,000 deposit. Yes, you meet the requirement, like you pay the deposit. So you and I remember you responded to that message that the school sent, because that's what they're using to know who needs the PAL. So as long as you also responded to their message, some schools sent out messages to students asking whether they needed it or not. So they're going to apply for you and send it once it's available. Okay. Okay. Somebody is asking, would I be having a webinar on proof of funds? I will let you know. At the moment, I don't have that planned. So I will do a post on it if I decide to, but I just wanted to, raise those things now for as many people who are here to just, know that you need to be careful, because we have so many people telling us all sorts of things that go on, and we just advise you need to be careful. Don't do anything that's going to jeopardize your future. Just be as straightforward as possible. If you need to start saving, but don't do shortcuts. Like, it's not going to get you too far. For Alberta, they should already have started issuing. Like, they need to apply. So now I believe that if you've informed them that you're interested in it, they would apply for it. I don't know what the turnaround time is for Alberta, but BC categorically told us that it takes 1 to 3 business days to get it. I don't know the exact time frame for Alberta, but I want to believe it's about the same time frame. Alberta too, they're very hands-on, and they've been doing a lot of, posts talking about how important international students are to the economy and whatnot. The good thing is, Alberta, you don't have anything to be scared of, because they have the space, they have the facilities, and they have like whatever numbers they're giving. It almost seems like they may be giving way more numbers than they can actually, they may actually need, because they seem very, very positive about this. Okay, please, do you have any updates for Nova Scotia? Okay, so I'll try to get back to Nova Scotia. Let me just see how many more questions. Okay, Saskatchewan, they haven't responded to me yet, but I'll do a post once they do. I want to advise, I see somebody saying that they paid $750. I want to advise you to pay more. Schools want to know that whoever is coming is going to come. And obviously, they'll feel more comfortable giving it to people who paid more deposits, who are committed to coming. But at the same time, please make sure that your proof of funds is solid, because they will soon start asking for people to provide bank statements. Some schools may start asking that. Don't be surprised. I haven't spoken about Manitoba yet. I was talking about Manitoba briefly. Alberta hasn't said any, like, that question didn't come up with Alberta, but I want to believe, just like what BC said, it should cut across all the provinces, because like I said, a PAL has been issued to you. They can't take a PAL from somebody and give it to somebody else. I don't think that's possible. So that means that as long as you have it, it can be reused within the time frame. Okay. Another Somebody is asking about the link for the current exchange rate. I don't have, like, the exchange rates vary. There are different platforms. I don't know what uh like what we see online, that's not always the real exchange rate, because it depends on the way you're sourcing for that. So I'm not able to share that exactly. But in terms of, if you want to calculate proof of funds for the sake of an application, we tend to use xe.com just because I know that the UK, they used to use Oanda. That's another website. And this is not black market. Like, this is just their own exchange. So xe.com, Oanda, they are fine if you're trying to convert the currency to know if you are within the amount that meets the minimum, proof of funds requirement. But, that's, yes, somebody is asking, can we start building our accounts? Yes, you can. Definitely start building your accounts, even though you don't have the attestation letter. The attestation letter is needed to submit. It has nothing to do, like, the attestation letter is the final step to be able to submit an application, because right now you can't submit without an attestation letter. Yes, SATE has a procedure in place, and they sent out messages to different students about a week or two ago to know who and who needed it. They're going to apply for those students who indicated that they needed it, and they're going to send it to both us and the students. Those going in May. So somebody is asking, those going in May, should we still submit? To be honest, it's a very hard question, and it depends on so many factors. Number one, we cannot guarantee that you'll get a decision before May. So I know that for those who may want to risk it, we can still submit. And then if it doesn't come out in time, then we can just notify the school that you defer to September. And that's hoping September is still open. Okay. But I ideally try to advise everyone to defer to September, just so that there's enough time to plan and build and, just be on the safe side. I would provide information soon about Nova Scotia. I need to find that link. I saw a link where they said that they have their allocation. I just wanted to be able to read it specifically, so I'll try to get that information. Somebody is asking about express entry. This is a provincial attestation letter webinar. If you want to know about express entry, like, go on our page. We have all sorts of information there. And if you want something specific to you, I recommend you book a consultation with us. At the end of this webinar, you're going to get a link that will take you to our immigration site. For those who want to book a consultation, feel free, click the links and book to have like a more specific information to you. But for those of our clients who are on the call, it's okay. You already have our data, so that's fine. Let me see which other question. I wanted to keep this at 30 minutes and this is almost an hour. Oh my God. Okay, let me see these questions. Oh my God, there's still so many questions. Okay, let me try to. The good thing is that these questions may cover places I may not have spoken about and may be able to help different people in navigating this very unique situation. Okay, so this question is with regards to Manitoba. I think I may be able to answer it once I talk about Manitoba. Yes, for Ontario, we gave the updates already. Don't worry, go on our YouTube channel. So after this webinar, you get a link for the YouTube channel and the social media handle. Click it. I hope to upload the video later today or tomorrow. You'll see the video and watch what you may have missed. Somebody is asking, I paid my first deposit. I'm not sure what that first deposit is, but I highly recommend that you pay more. When you pay more, you show less money in your proof of funds. If you pay more to the school, you show less money. And when I say less money, I mean, like, normally you have to show the balance of your fees. So it will show a lesser balance because you've paid the school more. I hope that makes some sense. On the proof of funds, if you're being sponsored by this is a provincial attestation letter webinar. If you're not a client of ours, you'd have to book a consultation for more specific information. How does so somebody is asking what is the expected tuition deposit? Schools will specify what it is, but I want to advise, if it is school that tells you pay $2,000, if you can, please pay between $5,000 to $10,000. Okay. I don't know when I'm doing a webinar on proof of funds yet. I see that question coming up a lot. Yeah, someone is asking about SAS Poly. They would respond. I think I don't know why they haven't responded yet, but I believe it's because they don't have the information yet. So just follow us on social media. We try to post as much information there. Okay, so let me quickly talk about Manitoba. Manitoba. So the good news is Manitoba provincial government, they created a process to make it very seamless for students, and it allows institutions send the PALs directly to students. For students who have already received the letter of acceptance and did not submit their study permit application, they would receive, the schools would follow up and send the PALs as soon as it's ready. For future students, at the same time they're receiving their PAL, they would also receive their letter of acceptance. Another good news is I'm trying to set up a webinar with the rep of the University of Winnipeg in Manitoba. So at the moment, we're looking at March, upper Monday, I think March 18th. But the time she's giving, or you guys, let me ask you guys, because I have about 30 something people on right now. On a Monday, what time is best to have a webinar? Just type it in the chat box, just so that I use this to get a poll of a good time to set that for, because she's also going to dive in deep in with regards to like spousal open work permit for those who may be affected by that new policy. And she's also going to dive into like the provincial attestation letter process and some other things around their provincial nomination things. So what time is good to do a webinar on a Monday? Please type it in the question box so that I'll be able to give her a better time. At the moment, she's thinking 3:30 on Monday, March 18th, but I feel that people may still be at work. What do you guys think? And then while you guys are typing in the answers for that, I forgot to share this poll. I have a poll that I created just to make it a bit interesting. I know we're about to round up, but everybody please just type in, click the one that is, I'll share let me see, can I share the results of the poll when you're done? Yeah, I can publish the results. So we want to have an idea of how many people we have on this webinar, like the provinces they're headed to, and also to have an idea of if I even covered most of the information. So while you guys are answering the poll, let me see if I can find that information on Nova Scotia. So it looks like we have more Alberta. Okay, let me share. Okay, let me do this. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to do this and then I'm going to share the results so you guys can see. Can everybody see the results of the poll? Alberta is the highest number of people we have on the call, followed by Ontario. Then there's an equal number of British Columbia, Manitoba, and Saskatchewan, and Nova Scotia. We don't found something. So I found it. I don't know why it was so hard to find. So I found the information about Nova Scotia, thankfully. So Nova Scotia was allocated 12,900 study applications. That's the allocation they got. And I think it's across all provinces that they should be able to expect, they should be able to have at least a 60% conversion rate. Okay. Okay, now I hope everyone can see the poll. I'm now going to hide it and move back to the question and answer, please. So institutions in Nova Scotia will be required to have on-campus housing for 15% of the full-time students. So they have, let me see if they said anything about the provincial attestation letter. So at least they have their allocation out. So they're expecting that they have a 7,740 international student approval rate. But the total allocation, the total cap for international students is 360,000. That was a huge reduction compared to like 900 and something that they had last year. But they're trying to be realistic. They don't want students coming and not having where to stay. And that's part of why they had to introduce this cap, so that schools can use this period to fine tune their processes, provide accommodation, and not have students. Okay, gone. I've done exactly 1 hour. And thank you all so much for your patience. Thank you for interacting. Like, I enjoyed this webinar so much, and I hope that you guys will join the next webinar we have whenever we set it up. But make sure you follow us on, on Enter Canada. That's the Canadian social media page for Harvestfield. We also have Harvestfield Edu. That's our education page for like the other countries we work with. And make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's where I'm going to put, oh, thank you for those hearts and loves. That's where we're going to put the video when we're done. We tend to have various webinars from time to time. Some are paid, some are free, but just make sure to follow us and stay tuned. For those asking for Saskatchewan, as soon as I have that information, I'm going to share it. Now we see that Nova Scotia has their allocation, but I haven't seen anything specifically saying that the attestation letter is ready. So as soon as we get that information, we're going to share it. Happy Women's Day. Oh my God, I almost forgot. Thanks so much. Happy Women's Day. Thank you guys. You were all so amazing. I hope you learned something. I hope you took some, notes that can help to guide you in your remaining planning. And I hope you all, I hope you guys come to Canada and like your dreams and aspirations are achieved. Make sure to follow Harvestfield Edu on social media and Enter Canada on social media, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay. For those who want one-on-one consultations, please, you would be directed, once I end this, you would get a link directing you to where you can book a consultation. For those who are asking very specific questions that I wasn't able to answer, feel free to book our consultation. And, I hope you have a lovely day. Thank you so much. Pearl here. Have a great evening. Bye.
The webinar has ended. Thank you for joining.